Yeah, and the book is a good background because it shows that are working, and all this is good. Indicate that's working.
Let me first start off with the correct pronunciation of your whole name. Everybody says Dr. Ben, but I know there's more to it than that. So give me
the full name is Yosef Alfredo Antonio Ben-Jochannan.
Okay. Is that Yosef short for Joseph, or
no?
Would
Yosef,
would that be the translation in American? Joseph.
Joseph would be the closest to it. It's
okay.
Yosef.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're an Egyptologist, correct?
Egyptologist.
When we say Egyptologist, what are we talking about?
Well, a person who specializes in the study of ancient Egypt is considered an Egyptologist normally. But, however, one must write about it, one must do research about it, and one should have gone to Egypt a number of times to do field research to be considered a true Egyptologist. But a lot of people just write one book or make a few statements about read some books and don't even go to Egypt. And a lot of people calling them Egyptologists, wrongly so.
Mm-hmm. I have a question of recent years, and maybe it's just an observation of mine, could be biased. But the news media and things, Egypt now is in the Middle East, and I was of the impression that it was in Africa. Is there something that I'm missing, or?
Well, the fact is, the Middle East is a political term created for those people who live in Africa and who are Africans but want to be white.
Okay.
They created the term Middle East so that they could say, well, we are European and Caucasian. But Egypt is in Africa, every bit of it, including the Sinai Peninsula. Mm-hmm. Have always been in Africa, and it seems as if it's going to always be in Africa.
Okay. I'm looking up over here. We're looking at the Mandela Award, and since Mandela was recently released, give me some feedback on that. I was excited because from the media presentation, Mandela was released on his terms as opposed to just being released. He created terms and he was released. You have any feedback on that?
Yes, I was given that award. You know, when people give you an award, you have no control over the award.
Okay.
I would have preferred to have been given an award for somebody in the PSC. There were men in jail a year and a half more than Mandela, but they were not publicized by the press. I am not honored by the award.
Okay.
It's like giving me a Martin Luther King award instead of a Malcolm X award. Both brothers fought for what they believe in terms of freeing black people. Mm-hmm. Yet I would have preferred to get the Malcolm X award than the Martin Luther King award. The same way, I'm not proud of an award from the ANC. I would have preferred to have one from the PAC, because it's the PSC that fighting the African position. The PSC would not negotiate with McClock or none of them. Mandela, and they had. Mandela is an integrationist. I'm not an integrationist.
Okay. That's the difference between them.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that the European should leave Africa or be pushed out of Africa. I don't believe that he should come there, kill at random, kill more people than Hitler killed Jews, that all those Europeans should be able to come and exterminate the Africa to the tune of 50 million, and know what we says, give them piece of the land, guarantee them this, guarantee them that. No guarantee for me, it's my land. No, I believe that he should leave the way he come, by the gun.
Okay. So Mandela's freedom wasn't really Mandela's freedom, or let's say, will we look at Mandela in the same light that we will look at Martin Luther King as far as their theory?
They will.
As far as that philosophy
they have the same philosophy, mm-hmm. which is mine.
Okay.
I would look at Malcolm X in my preference, or Marcus Garvey, than I would King or Du Bois.
Okay, Malcolm X. My only understanding of him is that he was assassinated because the way the autobiography was, as much as he was assassinated because he began to see from a different perspective when he went over to Mecca.
but I was his advisor.
Okay.
And I was the one that suggested right there in 22 West that he go to Mecca, and it's a lie. Anybody that said Malcolm was changing, Malcolm said a fact. He went to Mecca and he saw blue-eyed Muslim as well as other Muslim. That's all he said.
Mm-hmm.
The analysis and he didn't write the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Right.
It was Alex Haley
Right.
and a white man. Both of them combined. Malcolm have never seen the proof of those things. So they make Malcolm what they want him to be. But Malcolm X never changed. They can't tell me one speech in which Malcolm said that he changed.
Okay.
Not one.
Well, why do you think he was assassinated?
And who knew of a number of things? He had all kinds of enemies. He had enemies in his former alliance with Elijah Muhammad, and especially with Farrakhan and all them. He had enemies in France and England that barred him. And people forget that he was poisoned in Egypt and was 6 months sick in Egypt. People conveniently forget that. And he had enemies in the State Department, United States government. He had enemies, the same enemy I got, he had. And the same enemy black people all over the world had, he had.
You're talking about Egypt, and I'm looking at the third eye, the Third Eye Award, and Egypt. Everything that I hear about, or everything that I try to do research, because I didn't have African American history in high school. It's just as an adult I've begun to look and research on my own. Everything that I'm beginning to uncover leads us back to Africa, cradle of civilization, right. Medicine, the whole 9 yards. What's your feeling on that kind of a fact, and something that seemed to have happened because we no longer are aware of it?
Well, you look at that shelf, for instance, that shelf, the third one from the top down, and off on a door there. Those are about 15 or 20 of my 32 books that I've written. And I spent 50 years writing about the Nile Valley, Egypt included, and the African origin of Western civilization coming down the Nile from Ethiopia, Uganda, and others to Sudan into Egypt, and how Africans not only influenced but started world civilization. So that the years of information that I've gathered in my library here, and which goes into the next room, is only an indication of the seriousness of the materials available, which most people avoid using.
Okay. Why you say avoid? Why? Because of the...
Well, if people would honestly use the material on Egypt, most African Americans would give up the Bible, the Quran, and the Torah, and use only those spiritual work coming from the Nile Valley, such as the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Book of Gates, and other such materials. They would go to Egypt and see artifacts showing that long before there was an Adam and Eve concept, long before, thousands of years before the concept of Adam and Eve, Africans had concept of how man got here. For instance, at the tomb, at the temple of God Khnum in a place called Esna, Egypt, you see how God made man and his potter's wheel out of clay, and that's long before the Jews adopted the story and dropped out the potter's wheel. Okay. You will see the story of Isis becoming pregnant by Immaculate Conception at a temple of Setaiwan in Abydos, and that's 4,100 years before Mary did the same thing. So if people become serious here, ministers are going to have a tough time having a job. Okay. Rabbis and others.
That brings me to another question. I was just talking with a young lady at a daycare center. She says, make sure when you talk to Dr. Ben, you ask him about Jesus. She said that he has
which one does she mean?
Maybe that's what she meant. That's right. She said, ask him about Jesus. Yeah, maybe that's the one she meant.
There's 16 crucified saviors.
Okay.
And of course, Graves wrote a book called the World's 16 Crucified Saviors. Jesus is the last of the crucified saviors. Okay. Osiris was the first. Osiris was murdered and resurrected on the third day, moved an entire wall from his tomb, not one little tiny stone, a whole wall. And Osiris went up to sit with his father, God Ra, in heaven, and became the God of resurrection 4,100 years before Jesus learned the same thing. No, is she speaking of the Jesus that was supposed to be born in a cave in Ethiopia that they changed at the Nicene Conference to a manger in Bethlehem? Is she speaking about a Jesus that was black until Michelangelo painted his cousin and his cousin, his uncle and his uncle's wife and the little boy as the Holy Family for Pope Julius II and had the first white Jesus? Or she's speaking about the black Jesus, the Virgin and mother and child throughout Europe?
Okay.
That they know the black Madonna and child that the present Pope go to worship when he go to Poland. Which one is she speaking about?
That was probably what her question was. Maybe she knew that you were going to give us more than one answer, just to make sure you ask him. The you spoke of the council, the council of, is it Nicaea?
Nicaea conference. There
was a few years ago. I was reading a dissertation, I guess, by someone called Hilton Hotima.
Hotima. He used to be in California. He died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was right from California.
Okay. He talked about the Bible was put together from this Council of Nicaea, and
it was revised.
Okay.
Not put together.
He was saying that how there were more books and it was taken apart.
18 books were removed from the Bible at the Nicene Conference. They call the 18 books, they call it a non-canonical work, and the rest they call a canonical work. The Roman Catholic Church has since put back the books edited, very much edited, calling them the Apocrypha. Okay. The Protestants have not yet put back the books. They don't deal with them. They said they're lost, and they're lying when they say it's lost. I could show you every one of the so-called lost books of the Bible. I got them right back there in my library.
Do you think that those lost books are the reasons why, say, the African Americans here have kind of lost touch with, say, some of their history?
No, the lost books aren't it. The whole colonization process, the whole enslavement process, denied the African and at home and abroad, deny his true history. Professor George James, in his book called Stolen Legacy, said that is the stolen legacy. That is the tradition of the African. The fact that his history was colonized as the rest of world history. What the European did is to colonize world information. For instance, you heard of the term the 7 wonders of the world.
Right.
Who make 7 wonders of the world?
I don't know.
Who said that
I've always been curious what they were.
And then who decided what is the wonder of the world? The Europeans did it. Okay. Europeans said these 7 things are the wonder of the world. Nobody else. So everybody said, yeah, there's 7 wonders of the world. But who tell the European he got the right to decide what is the wonder of the world? He did it because he had the power, he had the military right, he had the control of man's mind. For the last 400-500 years, Europe ruled the world, literally. So now with Europe losing grasp of the world, and when I say Europe, I mean equally the United States, all of these things are going to change because I will be one to put up the fact that this nonsense about 7 wonders of the world, there are other things in Africa and Asia should be considered a wonder of the world, which the European couldn't do.
Right. Okay, looking at this third eye keeps bothering me, and I've often seen the third eye.
Eye of Horus.
I've always often seen this eye on the pyramid and on the dollar bill. And you have any background just on what's that about?
If you look on the green side of American dollar bill in the top left-hand corner, you see a sunburst, symbol of the sunburst, representing God Ra. Right. In the center of it, you see the Eye of Horus. I don't have a dollar on me. I just symbolic, the Eye of Horus, and that is called the Ujed, U-D-J-E-D. It's supposed to be the left eye that Horus lost in fighting his uncle who had killed his father. God, in other words, God said Typhon killed god Osiris. And this is about 4,000 years before Cain killed Abel. You understand what's going on? Why people can't deal with this, and the ministers aren't going to let them know anything about this, because then they'll find out how much lies are in the Bible, and how much the Bible have copied, distorted, and arranged to suit European context. Horus killed his father, and in the process of killing the process of killing his uncle, in revenge for having killed his uncle, kill his father, he lost his eye in the battle. That's where the eye of Horus come from. It has nothing to do with evil. Europeans, everything they touch got to have some evilness in it.
Well, they got it on the dollar, so I.
Well, sure. They got it.
They have it symbolic with the pyramid, and
the pyramid and that has nothing in context. Leave it to the European. He distort anything.
Okay.
This is strictly a distortion of the pyramid in Egypt. The pyramid means the house of fire, or where the pharaoh was built. And while we are there, the first pyramid, the step pyramid, was in Saqqara in the 3rd dynasty. And the last pyramid of the 82 pyramids of Egypt was built in the 12th dynasty, and not a single Jew was born yet, not even Abraham. So the whole thing about Jews building pyramids is pure nonsense. The second nonsense is these pyramids are made of large stone, monstrous stone. And this is the one that when Jews come and take picture at the pyramid to try to say that they built it, these are the ones that they go at. The largest one make a monstrous stone. And it's pure nonsense. How could Jews build a pyramid and Abraham, the first Jew, wasn't born yet? Especially the major pyramids at Saqqara and Giza.
Yeah, because they say that technology we're just beginning to reach that point that Egyptians were as far as the pyramids, because they're saying that a lot of the pyramids, my understanding is a lot of pyramids still stand.
Yes.
And no one can tell how they were put there.
Nonsense. They left things that show you. They left temples and they left ramp, and you see how they were placed together. They were the ancient Africans of the Nile built ramps, dirt ramps, so that you could push the stones and carry them, to pull them up the ramps. And when the higher they go, the longer the ramp came to keep the same angle, so they could bring it up. It's just all these mythological writers writing all kind of nonsense. That people telling you that either didn't go to Egypt at all, or they're just plain liars.
Okay.
Because if you go to Egypt, you know how things were done, because the ancient left things like that. They left information for you to see how things were done.
So does one need an understanding of the Egyptian language, or certain things you need to know how to read? I've heard talk with people who've been.
It will help you, but you don't have to have it.
I've talked with people who've gone to Egypt, gone through the pyramids, and they've come out having gone through the pyramids. It not registered. It's like, yeah, it's just a building, and that's where they buried the pharaohs, and. In my own mind, there's more to it than that. But they didn't. Whatever's there for them to understand.
You could come back with no understanding at all, and you could come back with a hocus pocus fairy tale understanding. It depends on how you approach the pyramids. And the pyramids is only one type of building in the whole of Egypt.
Okay.
And by the way, there are pyramids in Sudan too. People think that this all is Egypt. This is the whole Nile Valley. The Nile Valley civilization, and I don't speak of Egypt as a separate entity. Egypt represents the fulcrum, represents the zenith of a culture that started 4,000 miles south of Egypt. Not Egypt. The civilization in Egypt didn't go up north. Up south. It came down north, because the Nile River, the only major river. Run from south to north, not north to south.
Okay, so it's a whole nother
nother thing. Yeah.
I have a question in reference to tradition or culture. The past few years, I've seen a lot of African American males wearing earrings. I grew up. Men didn't wear earrings just based on the tradition in our home that women wore the earrings and men didn't. Now it's a whole thing, and everybody's trying to give justification.
Some men wore,
and I never understood what.
Some men wore an earring, and it was assumed that will help your sight in some African groups, but in large, men didn't wear 2 earrings and for beauty. No, it was strictly women who wore earrings. In that sense, yes. but only some men in some places would wear an earring, tiny little one, nothing decorated, a little ring in the ear, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I would prefer, it wasn't an earring like the sense of the woman using it for decoration.
Mm-hmm.
These brothers that use them for decoration is punking out.
Okay.
I mean, it has nothing to do with African beauty. Men never wore earring for beauty.
Okay. Speaking while we're talking about jewelry, we're just looking at, this is catching my eye because I've always liked the symbols. And
this represents an organization in the continent, and Egypt, Nubia, to be exact. This here, let's go from top to bottom, is the Ankh, or key of life. It certainly is not a cross.
okay.
This in the center is a Shenu, or Chirac, which people call cartouche. But cartouche is a French word. It has no right in the language. This here over the cartouche, what is called cartouche, is the ever-seen eye we just spoke of Horus, the Ujet, Udjet. These figures within the cartouche or the Shenu are numbers. For instance, this is 100 and 100, 100. There are three of these, mean 300, right? This symbol is 10. There's 6 of them. And then you see a tiny little circle so that it's 360 degrees. Here is the sun, 360 degrees under the sun over the moon. This is not a crescent like the Muslim religion, has nothing to do with it. This is the first moon of the ancient Nile Valley calendar. This is not a Magen David. There was no David alive when the Egyptian used this. Is 2 pyramids upside down, bisecting each other, and it's known as the dog star of Egypt. Magen David was started by Herzl, the man who started, the father of Zionism, and he wasn't around when the Africans were using this sign. And the last one here is the scarab, or the dung beetle, symbolic of resurrection. It goes into the dung, and every 28 days it emerges, it resurrects from the dung. And of course, this have the same angle as the pyramid of Khufu at Giza.
What is the symbolism of the pyramid? I mean, we talk about the pyramid, people use them all the time, but there's never been...
They're the house of the last resting place of pharaohs from the 3rd dynasty to the 12th dynasty.
Okay.
That's the way most
so
of them used to be buried.
Okay.
They're tombs.
Okay.
And all kind of people since that place all kind of gobbledygook about the pyramids, making up their own story based upon pure nonsense, most of it.
What about the Sphinx that we see, the half-man
Well, it's not a Sphinx, actually. There's no Sphinx in Egypt or any other parts of the world but Greece.
Okay.
The Greeks had a statue of a woman, and when they came to Egypt, thought that this looked like the statue that they left, and they call it the Sphinx, particularly the one at Giza. Frankly, the ancient Africans call it the statue of god Ra-Horakhti, or god Hamakis, being the statue of the pharaoh Khafra, the son of the man who built the biggest pyramid at Giza. So the statue actually is the head of Pharaoh Khafra and the body of a lion.
Okay. You have several books on history and in Africa and Egypt. Where does one such as myself begin to unravel some of the mysteries that have been hidden by the rewriting and changing of history? Are there, if we recommend, I call them an eye-opener book that will start you on a path to more awareness. Is there a starting book that would, open up one door that leads you to another one that you could recommend?
If one doesn't know anything about Egypt at all, For an easy reading, I would suggest J.A. Rogers's African World's Great Man of Color, Volume 1. They have 1 and 2, but I would suggest Volume 1. Then I would suggest George G.M. James's Stolen Legacy, and I would suggest my own book, Black Man of the Nile, and a number of other books I've done. Culture, Genocide in the Black and African Studies Curriculum, Africa, Mother Western Civilization, and a number of others that I have done. For instance, the African origin of Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So those books I will recommend, and they, of course, will give you hundreds more.
Okay. We're looking at just this flyer here. Dr. Benz presents Egypt, Land of the Pharaohs. What's your tour around or about? What is the tour based on?
The tour is based upon visiting a number of temples and the museum in Cairo, a Nubian village and so forth, to find out on the site the African origin of Egyptian culture and the Egyptian origin or origin of Western civilization, because everything the West has based their culture on came out of the Nile Valley. And when I say Egyptians could have been people from Sudan, from Ethiopia, and elsewhere in the continent of Africa. All of them living into a territory called Egypt make them Egyptians.
Speaking of Ethiopia, I guess I'm sure you're aware of the past few years of all the money and the concerts and everything aimed at helping feed the starving Ethiopians. And I was of the mind that Africa is still a rich continent. What do you think was the cause of that, or what's causing
the Sahel?
That?
I mean, you have right at the bottom. If the Mojave Desert start moving, that's in the western part of southwestern part of the United States, they'll have the same question. People would starve if they don't move. When the wells dry up and the animals die, people would starve if the government tell them move to this land, and they say no, we're not going to move. This is a traditional land. It's the land of our ancestors. We can't move. They will die too. Okay. But they make it seem as if the whole of Ethiopia was starving. When a person living about 10 miles from the northern border of Ethiopia, the only how they know there was a famine was from TV or radio, the same way you know.
Right.
They would not know if they lived 10 miles north of the border, I mean, south of the northern border. You could have been in Ethiopia and never know there was such a thing as starving on the border.
Oh, okay.
It was put totally out of proportion, not accidentally, but purposely.
Okay.
The church raised money. These singing groups raised money and didn't turn over, but a little bit. All of them pocketed the vast majority of the money. It was a racket. And people don't want to tell the truth. They're still running them pictures that were made 3 and 4 or 5 years ago, running them to collect money.
Right. Let me ask you something in reference to the Africans and the Egyptians, African American, the culture, since we're talking about 4,000 years before Christ. Do you feel there's something within the African culture that's agricultural by their being? I'm wondering. It seems like just looking at, say, the history in America and the South, that blacks somehow made progress, even though fighting through slavery and what have you. But the basic natures seems to lend itself towards agriculture, growing and being close to land, as opposed to high tech and technology.
All people. And that couldn't be true, because when high tech and technology were high tech, and when the Africans engaged in high tech, when the Africans created mathematics and did buildings like you see, and like created the calendar and the instrument to measure the planet Earth to the other planets and so forth, no other person was doing it. That was high tech.
Right.
Okay? When they forget that the Africans built the first stone building in all of history in Hotep. that the Africans were practicing medicine before the first European Hippocrates came. The Africans were practicing medicine when the European didn't know what the inside of a human body looked like, and so on and so on. So it is not high tech that the African is not accustomed to. It's colonialism, slavery, and Holocaust with a S that the Africans suffered under the hands of all European, whether they were Christian, Jewish, or what. Europeans, irrespective of classification,
right,
enslaved Africans.
So you think as a result of that, we're where we are today?
Well, what else? If you did it to any people,
right?
At least we are lucky. Fellow Africans from Tasmania, not one of them is alive. They talk about the European Jews, what he suffered. The European Jews suffered nothing like the Tasmanian. There isn't a Tasmanian left.
That's right.
Every last one was killed by Europeans.
What do you think at this point, for those that are here, what do you feel that it's time for them to do? I mean, we've had education, or we had some education. There's still, there's not an awareness at all of the, that the line.
African Americans in no large group gonna do my suggestion. They didn't do it when Garvey did. African Americans got to realize that the continent of Africa is their home, and that's what the whole world is looking at. The big thing about Gorbachev and Bush wasn't anything about communism and capitalism. It is the Europeans getting together because they decide that the non-Europeans were about to take back the world, and they are lining up against what African Americans need to do is to line up with themselves to realize that we are. They talk about third world, but they don't talk about third force. They don't talk about thinking of ourselves as an entity to going back to our continent, either physically or mentally, or physically and mentally, and supporting African states to be independent, and if necessary, whip the United States behind, whip England, whip France, anybody that has been mistreating Africans, we may have to whip someday. And I don't see nothing against that. But Africans got to think that way. It's going to be a hard thing because our chicken-eating ministers are never going to come to that time. All they're going to worry about, they don't even use Cadillac anymore, but the Mercedes-Benz. And you know what I mean? And it's going to be a lot of professors going to have to fly, right? That's and true. I was saying, protecting the condominiums and all like that. But the day going to come that a lot of people going to leave the condominiums and the Mercedes-Benz.
The question I had for you talk about chicken-eating ministers. They don't shoot me anyway, but... Well, Jesse Jackson.
You got one or two exceptions,
of course,
but by and large, they're a bunch of chicken eaters, and that's all.
Yeah, but
they don't serve the congregation, telling you about getting up to heaven. Nobody know anything about heaven; it's a belief. But they don't deal with your earthly needs. They're so good to go to heaven. You didn't see no minister gladly volunteering to die so he could go to meet God.
No, that's my question. Jesse Jackson, when they had the convention, the Democratic convention, and he had been so duly mistreated by the caucus, He wasn't
mistreated. He got what he deserved. He got down on his knee begging. He make a statement. All kind of people make statements about black people, and nobody's apologizing for it.
Right.
All right. It was off the record. And another Uncle Tom black man went and tell what it was. That's a Tom. He had done it to a sister before. Okay, so that he's just a new. We could come up to be the most purest everything when it come against ourselves. All right. Jesse said he was sorry and he begged. He got down almost on his knee and begged the Jews for forgiveness about Jaime Tongue. But Jaime Tongue is New York. Jews call each other Jaime. Hyman, the name Hyman is a pet name for Hyman is Jaime. And Jews said Jaime Tongue among themselves, just like Italians say wap among themselves, Africans use nigger among themselves, and all this kind of thing. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So it was a statement. Now he went and apologized, begged. He got it almost on his knee. He went back and begged again at the National Convention. Jesse deserves whatever he's getting. I don't have no respect for him.
Well, that's what I was saying. But you look at people like that who have this national leadership front. I was upset because the fact that he made this concession speech as opposed to at that point having that much power, being a chance to stand up and speak on some issues. He didn't use that forum.
But when you are a Negro,
okay,
or a colored person, you don't suddenly become African.
Okay.
Okay? Just like he used the term African American.
Okay.
It wasn't nothing new because Jesse used it. They already make the agreement they're going to quote him. And so they quote him as if Jesse coined the term. That term, I'll show you 2 books that I wrote in 1939 with African, Caribbean, African American, and so forth, because up to this day, I don't take the word Afro this because there's no O in Africa. I don't take all of these sideline expletives from African people and so forth. But I feel about Jesse as I feel about the mayor of New York, or new mayor of Tel Aviv. The Jews didn't vote for him, right? But anything happened to the Jews, he's the first man there. The Latin-speaking people, the Spanish-speaking people voted for him something like 72%. The Africans voted for him something like 98%. And you would think now that, like any other, that he would put in more African in government than anybody else. When the Irish win in any neighborhood, they put in the Irish. Right. When the Italian won, they put in more Italian than anybody else. When the German won, I don't need to go down on the list.
Right.
If Chinese won, they're going to have a Chinese cabinet. You may take an occasional spook to sit in the door, or an occasional Jew to sit in the door to look good. But the vast majority of that government going to represent the person who win, his ethnic group. Well, we got a mayor. I mean, it looked like he's the mayor of Tel Aviv. He don't look like he's the mayor of New York.
Question. Speaking of, let me ask you a question about an Egyptian leader. That by the time I realized that he was the one that brought my attention to the fact that Egypt had a leader that was of color, was Sadat.
Not one. The first man, the first Egyptian to recapture Egypt when they overthrew Farouk, the man that overthrew Farouk, Mohammed Naguib, nobody mentioned him. He was before Nasser. He was the first president of Egypt. He ruled for 14 months. Was born of a Sudanese mother and a Sudanese father, but he was born in Egypt. The second one had an African mother and an Arab father. That was Gamal Abdul Nasser. The third one had an African mother and an Arab father, was Muhammad Anwar Sadat. This is the first president of Egypt who did not have an African parent, and that's Hosni Mubarak, who has both Arab parents.
Why was Sadat assassinated? I mean, just
he assassinated because he went
a good president.
He went afoul of the Arab League. He was a member of the Arab League. The Arab League was not making any treaty for the economic salvation. Let's deal with the thing for the economic salvation of Egypt, and Egypt had carried most of the war against Israel when Israel attacked Egypt, and thus Sadat said, "Well, look, now we carried the war, and we did all this, and our economy is shot. I'm going to make peace so I could build back my economy." Now, if I got a group with you, it's not a question of right or wrong, but I got an agreement with you, you leave me and go and negotiate with the enemy for some money, then naturally you subject yourself to get knocked off.
Right.
And that's what happened to Sadat.
In fact, it says Sadat. I guess I made him a hero because when I was in college, I was in college and they were celebrating the 20th anniversary boycott, and I had never seen a black person.
No, and it's based upon the propaganda that you are fed. You don't know that Egypt's first president was black.
Right.
First, second, and third presidents were black. And by American standard, if you got an African parent anyway, you're black. But in the case of the first president, you have both African parents.
Right.
Muhammad Naguib. Even in Egypt, they don't speak much about him.
Right.
Because he was the one that wanted a reunification of the countries of the Nile.
Is there a conspiracy internationally, or are the only blacks that are still woolly-haired and brown-skinned the ones I see in America? Do they no longer exist in Africa? When I see Egypt and every time I
But
see,
you see,
these, you never see. I never see anybody looks like me anymore.
North
Let's put it that
Africa
way.
has been conquered.
Okay.
Remember, North Africa is under Arab control,
Okay.
like America. How often do you see an Indian? Okay, you know what I mean by indigenous person.
Right.
You unless you go on a reservation, you rarely see an Indian. And when you see most of them, it is the white man who have been mating with the Indian, now representing himself as an Indian. And 90% of the time, he who is doing that is an Indian because somebody in the family, but most of the time it's the European who mated with the Indian, his children claiming to be Indian for political reasons. The vast majority of the indigenous people would prefer to be away from the white man.
Okay.
Yeah, but you got blue-eyed white men calling themselves Indians. Yeah, their great-grandmother someplace back there might have been an Indian. Or you follow what I'm saying?
Right.
But they down-to-earth Indian who on both sides of the family was indigenous to this land. You don't see him too much.
No.
You don't see him doing that. Extermination has been the process.
What can we do, or do you see? Yeah, I don't say what can we do, because you're the historian, and they say we're doomed to repeat our history if we don't learn from our past mistakes.
And we don't.
I've seen drugs and everything else that have taken over our communities. And I'm trying to see, what do you feel that can be done at this point to?
You got to know yourself.
Okay.
You got to know your history. Why people? You know why I raised 12 children.
Mm-hmm.
One boy is on drugs. He's right now in jail. But he's a professional. He got an MSW, and he's working for the welfare department. I think he's supervisor, and now he's doing a 2-year in a detoxification place. That's his thing, drug. Now he didn't get that as a little boy who had no money, hungry, and so forth. It's because drug is in the community. He got involved. None of his other 11 sisters and brothers. You got 11 other sisters and brothers. None of them get on that stuff. But still, I got one victim. Well, he take his heritage. You know, you could see what he had available to him. But the pressures of the drug life even got to him. You see, he was a singer.
Mm-hmm.
In the time when black people weren't singing with Axel Starduff and Ray Thing and all of them in the Waldorf, this kid had gone there. He'd been warned by some of the top African artists, stay away from these people, stay away from drug. But no, he got slick like most of the others. He know more than these people, he know more than his parents, and he got involved, right? Now he's paying the price. He's 6 years old, and sitting in jail for 2 years for over drug. Now, so you got those things. What got to be done is that parents like me got to beat the hell out of those children. Don't let no socialists and any college tell you you can't hit your child. Beat the hell out of them. I hit all of my children. Probably I was too light on his behind, but But I'm not too light on the other children. No, it's just he got away. But we need to teach our children about themselves so they can appreciate it themselves. Don't put a drug in their arm or put the drug in there. But look at the fact: the African American child who put drugs in them is generally the poor one or the misguided one and so forth. But the European, he put drug and he's the most sophisticated children. You see what I mean? So what we have to understand is that the economic pressure, the racism in society, institutional racism. You see, the thing in America isn't racism. Racism, every society got. Right. It is institutional racism that in other places where you may have an individual who don't like you or mistreat you racially, that's one thing. The thing in other society is not institutional. Right. It is not a start. The United States government released papers on racism that is as racist as could be. The Constitution started as a racist document.
Right. They had some kind of special with J. Edgar Hoover on talking about all the scandals and things.
But right now they got the year of this Constitution and bragging about it. I don't say a damn thing about the Constitution. To hell with it, because it didn't make me a citizen. they had to have retaught. You see, we're going to have to assess history rather than gobbling everything they put in front of us. I won't celebrate Christmas. Adults? How could I celebrate? What the adults did for black people? Nothing. He got shot in the rectum defending a cracker from another one. He was defending the American cracker from the British cracker, right? And he got shot. He just had, but he didn't do enough for black people. I could see them Avise and Turner. They died for their people.
Right.
Not Christmas adults. We have to be articulate. And to say just because a man is black don't mean a damn thing. You got a black man, there's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, born in his people from Jamaica in the Caribbean, and he write the whole attack on Panama. Don't tell me that fool didn't know that Panama is a black country. And the pretext of getting Oriega, they put Oriega there. When Bush and all of them headed the drug, what happened is the bagman Oriega stopped sending the full money to the owner Bush, and Bush them get mad that he was cutting off the drug money.
Yeah, but once again, when they show you Panama,
they don't show the blacks.
The media is very careful that you don't. That's what I'm saying. You don't even know blacks are in Panama.
All right. When
this is history right here. You're telling
there.
me.
And the majority of the Panamanians are originally people from Jamaica and Barbados that went to build the canal. They don't show you that. They don't show you presidents they were black presidents of Panama.
No, they
don't show that. The majority of the people are black.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That where do you feel you think it can start with the smaller children? Because when I'm saying I'm understanding the institutional racism, but I'm seeing at this point the financial. It seems like the racism is tied into economics, which ties you into despair. So
that's right.
And I'm just trying to figure: do you see a way out?
There's no magical place to start. You got to start everywhere, because you can't say with the young children, then the parents don't know. So how they're going to teach the young children?
Right.
I say it got to be a multi-pronged attack from every angle that we can think. Those of us who have this knowledge got to teach those of us who don't have the knowledge, and it doesn't come from the church, the radio, it comes from everywhere.
Mm. But should
the church need to do its work rather than try to send people up to heaven. The church need to deal with people down here on earth and deal with our earthly problem. We're going to die anyhow. We don't need the church to die, and we don't need the church to do good.
Right.
A man could do good without the church, but the church, the old church of Richard Allen, had history classes, they had books, they had things that teach about people who are proud to be black. But even in the church look at people with funny if they come with their natural hair. Right. But if it come with a jerry curl, it's okay. Yeah. See, this is the church. The church doesn't...
The black church still comes across in a way a lot of it's presented. I remember asking a prophet recently, was it a white man's religion? Because I grew up in the black church, but you still see in most black people's homes, if they have a picture of Jesus at all,
white
Jesus. Blonde
Jesus.
hair,
it's always Michelangelo's cousin.
Okay.
And that's the picture Michelangelo drew for Pope Julius. They don't know the history. Mm-hmm. Until that time, it was the Black Madonna and Child. Even in the Pope of Rome, where do you got to celebrate? At the feet of the Black Madonna and Child in Poland. Up until Michelangelo's Jesus, Mary, and Joseph was always shown black. The icons in the Soviet Union, the paintings all over Spain and so forth, is the Black Madonna and Child. They still exist. Ethiopia, Black Madonna and Child. Everywhere in the world it was the Black Madonna and Child until Michelangelo drew the first white Jesus for Pope Julius and the church.
Mm-hmm, because they say that Jesus had to study in Egypt because they had to leave. The Christian concept is that they had to leave Israel or wherever they were.
He studied in Egypt because nobody has had the intelligence to teach him anything. There was nothing there in Egypt. That's what in Israel and Egypt and Israel and Rome and all the Greeks. They came to Africa to get their education. Mm-hmm. That's where men start fighting, where men start putting mathematics, and the documents are there. The artifacts are all over the place.
Okay, the schools, speaking of education and teaching people where they are, the schools, are you currently teaching?
No, I retired from my last teaching assignment last year. I retired from Cornell after 17 years there in 87, and then 87, 88 I taught at Al-Azhar University in Egypt, and I retire for good now from teaching. I'm doing more back
Were
to
you
research.
allowed? I guess maybe the wrong term, but were you allowed this freedom to? This kind of eye-opening information within the context of your teaching years at 17 years at Cornell?
Yes, because Cornell got African Studies Center. If I was teaching on the main campus, I would have catch hell. As it stood, I took catch hell. But Cornell had Africana Center, which was 100% faculty and administration at one time. Now I saw where they got one European girl who's the administrator's assistant or something like that, and I understand one person. But for Cornell, the time I was there, it was an Africana Studies Center was predominantly under Dr. Turner, an African administration. And not only that, but every time people attack me, I support my evidence, and Dr. Turner had no other thing but to keep me, because when people attack me, I came with the documents.
Okay.
So my adversaries all at Cornell. And now that I've gone, Bonnell, who follow me, now is supposed to be the hero, quoting everything I wrote and quoting others, can't even put a book for himself, and now he's the hero. All over his book, he quoted me.
Question: in your studies, looking at who was it that you was the father of medicine? Because I am
Imhotep.
Imhotep. From studying in your research, have you come across any disease such as AIDS?
No.
That's transcended, or say a resurgence from something as you can see.
There's nothing that was said in the papyri, the different papers, by those ancient Egyptian, Sudanese, Ethiopian physicians that suggest such a plague as AIDS. AIDS is a plague, but to me, it's a man-made plague.
Okay.
I am fully convinced, because virus don't just jump up out the basket. AIDS just suddenly happened. To me, it's a part of germ warfare which got out of hand. You see, the European don't mind killing me.
Right.
But he won't to kill himself. And when he started to die by it, almost, and more than me, because he got more people than him, than me, percentage-wise, I may be higher than him in percent, but in actual people dying, he's way higher than me. Now, he don't want to, he thought that drugs were going to eliminate me and then touch him. But now when he finds this, so he's trying to stamp it out. Now because he's trying to die more than mine. Now, the same way, AIDS he thought was going to be able to get me. They experimented in Africa, they experimented in Haiti. Well, the thing got out of hand. And now he got it. And that is the same way he's done everything.
Okay.
But there's no evidence of such. There was no evidence of syphilis. Syphilis is a European disease, given to the indigenous people here, given to the African people, and they said that all the technologists and all the physicians said that it come from sleeping with dog, man sleeping with a bitch dog.
Oh, okay. And I had heard it sleeping with sheep. I
hadn't
heard it with the dog too.
The boatman's trait.
Yeah.
Like humans, so the fact that transmitted the disease. Even sheep, it don't make it better.
Yeah, because they had commented that
yes,
what's his face had syphilis.
Right.
Who's the I was going to ask you about.
Well, all the big shots they were carrying for a long time. Europe,
the Egyptian guy, Idi Amin.
Yeah,
the African guy, Idi Amin.
They put so much lies on. I mean, they say kill all those people, and the UN couldn't find one person grave who he killed. You mean they did a hatchet job, and Idi Amin, because we are so susceptible to anything that certain Europeans put out against us, especially European Jews, because people don't want to talk the truth. They're afraid of the term anti-Semitism. But look who, the NWC, the Urban League, who are the ones, the Europeans, that predominant, that control the mind of African Americans? Who are the ones that dominate on the board of the NAACP in the white community? European Jews. The white people mostly on those boards are doing. Look at the teachers' union. We can't deny the fact that the majority of the white who control the union in the teachers' union are Jewish Americans. If we run for it, we're scared to say what the records show. Yet they take every attempt to show who is anti-Semitic. They can't call me anti-Semitic because I'm Jewish like any one of them. I am a Jew just like they're Jews.
Right.
So they're going to call me anti-Semitic too? But okay, I don't give a damn about what they're going to say. I mean, these are the facts. Let them come and I'll debate any rabbi like I did the last time when I debate that Rabbi Seltzer. Let them come. I'll debate the Grand Rabbi of Jerusalem if they want and the issue.
We would the question was, in as much as you have a greater awareness and understanding of history and religion and God, do you practice a religion? Is
Yes.
there something that you?
Yes, I worship my wife and my children.
Okay.
God is a concept.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's a belief. No one knows.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't believe in a deity, I believe in a goddess. I can't see a baby being born through a man-rib cage. I could see a baby being born through a vagina. They're doing it right now across the street in Harlem Hospital. While I'm talking to you, at least 2 or 3 babies have been born through a woman's vagina, and not out of mud or clay.
Right.
It's out of meat, which came from blood. Okay? Right. That's how babies come. And babies come from a man's penis and a woman's vagina. That's the only kind of babies I know. None. I have never seen a baby from clay.
Speaking of that, what do you think about the focus we've gotten so far away from husband and wife and the concept of people being married to have children, and they're hollering now, and it's really pushed in a minority community, condoms and all these things.
Because economics.
Okay.
When man and woman had marriage, it was never under a economic system we have. The woman stood home and the man worked. The man worked at least enough to take care of his family. But when the woman had to leave the house to work in these sweatback factories, which still exist, then the role breaks down. Why should a woman listen to the man? And in many cases, she's making more money than him. Mm-hmm. So the man can't no longer, we're going to tell her. You could tell her, come in the house, and she said, look, man, don't talk me nonsense. I'm making $100 more a week than you. This house depends on me as much as you. So what happened is the woman started to now reevaluate the position and saying that, look now, I make as much money as you. In our case, since more women go to college because of the advantage they had in the origin of slavery and so forth, it is the woman, basically the African woman, who makes more money in the family. Mm-hmm. And she's put at a much more economic and lucrative position than the man. So to expect marriage to be this nonsense about marriage made in heaven. Marriage is not made in heaven. You see a man down at City Hall give a license, another one with his shirt turned backward, mm-hmm. Get up in front and say that what God have put together. He just put them together. No, God put nothing together. But all those things go down. Mm-hmm. So when it break up, if God put it together, why didn't God keep it together? Because it's only something said. The reality is 2 people get together and those people got to run their life. And the economic thing gets so damn hard that one run and leave mm-hmm. the whole damn family. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to deal it. You see, we lie to ourselves daily. Right. Because we are taught to lie on Sundays in the pulpit and Saturdays in the pulpit and Fridays in the pulpit. That's the Muslim, the Christian, and the Jews. Mm-hmm. And an ego trip.
Where do you see the place for organized religion as we know it, the Protestant, the Catholic, all the other things we have now? Do you see a place for it in our society?
In the cemetery.
Okay. What do you feel? What would you put in place of it?
I feel organized responsibility. It doesn't have to be religion. If religion is willing to deal with the truth, willing to deal with human life, rather than trying to sell people a sky pilot flight, then okay. I don't say, remember, I make a distinction between one being spiritual and one being religious.
Okay.
Religion is based upon prejudice. If you're a Roman Catholic, then you don't have to communicate with a Baptist. If you're a Baptist, then you don't deal with, you follow me, right. Christian Scientists. Right. And religion raises more bias than anything else I know.
Right.
If you don't believe in God, then everybody willing to kill you or see you killed and don't say anything at all because you don't believe in the concept of God. Then they say they're willing to let you die. But the whole point of this is that I could be a good person without any religion. But spiritual, I'm spiritual. You hungry, you come to me. I give you something to eat. I don't ask you what your religion is. I don't care. If you're hungry. Now, religious people go ask, are you Christian? You see, I come in the church and I say, I don't have a place to sleep. The first thing I want to know, am I Christian? Suppose I tell them no. They already they start to pull back. These so-called missionaries don't come in the neighborhood and do something for the people unless they're going to build a church to make the people Christian. That's my point. They don't do it because they love people. They're liars. They come because they're selling something. They're selling Jesus.
So you feel that people can live a spiritual life without being
religious. You don't need religion to be spiritual.
Okay. What would you constitute a spiritual walk? When people are spiritual. A
spiritual walk is when I walk in the street there and see a sister walking with hardly any good shoes and the snow is out there and her child crying, hungry, and I tell her, come sister, here is some food for you and your child, and I don't ask her to go to bed with me. That's a spiritual walk. But I know too many religious people with a big cross, or a big this, Morgan David, a big whatever it is, they're going to tell the sister, look, come, get her out to the house, lay with the sister, and scarcely give the child a piece of bread. And then tell her, and Sunday she's a sinner.
You're off to, where are we off to now? You say you're on our...
I am returning to Egypt where I got residence. If not, I will leave this...
dual residency?
Yes, I do. I do the same thing everybody else do. Europeans got dual residency. Jews got dual residence. Dual citizen. Why not me? The Jews who fought in the Israeli army, who ran for the Israeli Olympics, and the American citizen. Why not me? I could go to Africa and do the same thing.
What about Liberia? I was talking with a youngster recently who was, his father had been a king or something in Liberia at one time.
President. Maybe Tubman. There's some Tubman brothers here whom I know very well.
They were he's having a problem becoming citizen. I said and I was confused because I thought that Liberia was you had dual citizenship or something.
You don't have dual citizenship openly. It's one you take for granted. Okay. But then when you're black, that doesn't operate. If he was Hebrew, Jewish, he wouldn't have much trouble because he could get any one of the state representative, federal representative in Washington, D.C., and there are a number of them, who would appeal directly to the president for him.
Okay.
Whereas he's black. You see, we don't network on our blackness. We want to be so purely democratic, and we don't believe in doing anything that is not in the term of the law. After all, we must do it the democratic way, and we don't want to be racist. Why not? Everybody else is racist. Why can't we act a little racist sometimes?
No, it makes sense to me. I've come across a bunch of young people that they finish college, they've got pieces of paper, but you interview them and they still don't have skills to do the jobs. Not just athletes, but young people who supposedly have trained and studied and what have you, and they're still not prepared when they leave college.
Because college isn't to prepare everybody who come to it to do anything.
Okay.
College is used as a snub club.
Okay.
Most blacks who go to college want to be members of the Appa, Dappa, La Kappa, Lapa, Iota, Japa, Jackass. And then they come out spreading the damn Greek pin and the Greek letters, and they're freaks. When they come, instead of Greek, they're freaks. Okay. Black Greek, as if the Greeks were something. They don't know that the Greeks got their education from the Ethiopians, the Egyptians, and the others. Now, when you got a guy come out with that, was wearing his Greek thing on his head, and no sense in here. I mean, the brain matters as curdled by the time you get out of the school. He believes it's so big over his mama that's sitting there, or his grandma who's got dishpan elbows for rubbing floor for him. Right. He all come back with his nose up in the air. And when it comes down to it, he's getting the lowest of the low of the salaries that they're out there. But he's big doo-doo. His stuff don't smell. Now,
He's unable to compete. I'm just finding they're not.
He can't compete because what he think is social acceptance is the thing of America. He is worth. Look. I see fellows at this restaurant right here, 22S. That's a big time restaurant in Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
Brothers come there and argue that they were the first men to play on a golf course where Jimmy Demerit stool.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the first one to smell the place that some other guy played golf. And she was the first one to hit a ball where some babe Darius walk over with her bare feet.
Mm-hmm.
Nonsense like that. And they're big college people. They come there to talk that junk. They don't talk anything about what's happening in the world in Vanuatu with African people. What's happening in Jamaica. What happened in Newark with African people. They come to talk goddamn nonsense. And yet with all them degrees, don't mean a damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
You see, they don't relate to the black man in the street and his problem. They tell you that they're middle class. Middle what class? I mean, they're class in the same building with me. I ain't no damn class. Middle, upper, lower. I am an African fellow catching hell like the other African, but I'm catching hell on a level. You see, being a professor at Cornell University make me no difference. When Cornell was going to discriminate against the man washing the John with his hand, and he was black, I will have catch the same trouble. Nobody wants to ask me if I was a professor. And until we start to realize that the black man or black woman who even the head of the Joint Chief of Staff, tomorrow they'll bust him like they will bust any little black boy running down the street.
Yeah, you talked about the Greeks. I thought about that movie that I saw a few years ago, School Days, and it kind of got lost. I don't know if you had a chance to see it.
I heard it, but I didn't see it.
They had Greeks and dogs, and it just.
But you got the black people still doing shuffle dance.
Yeah,
and that's required to become a Greek freak.
Yeah,
doing shuffle dance, and the shuffle dance. I mean, man, that's gone out so damn long. Which shoe shine and shuffle dance gone out, but they still got it as a glorious thing. Mm-hmm. See, but if you don't, being that don't mean they don't know themselves.
Mm-hmm. Because blacks don't control the media and the.
We work in it lately, but we have no control.
Only on the weekends.
Yes, weekends. That's right. Mostly weekends.
You look at your
no doubt. Mostly weekends.
And I watched that in school. I was at Rutgers in New Jersey, and I lived in this community, and the weekends, all the stores and things that were open were all black, and it used to always it was fascinating because during the week you had a whole different client running through, and then the weekend all of a sudden blacks
in Harlem here, I call it in 5 o'clock Harlem. There's a migration to the suburb.
Mm-hmm.
8 o'clock in the morning, there's a migration to Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
The whites go out, they come in the morning at 8, and they leave in droves at 3. They get out as fast as sundown.
Mm-hmm.
I see, but see, I would make them. I'll give them a good reception.
The Arabs. Do you think that the Arabs have been able to take over? Because my mother brought to my attention that in Cleveland, all the small businesses that used to be owned by blacks,
Jews, and in some
Jews,
area, and Italian
are being
in some
bought
area.
out by Arabs. And her question is, where's the money coming from? Because blacks can't seem to get these loans.
Oil.
Okay.
Arab oil.
Okay. And they
the oil money is filtering here, like the Japanese money from technology. That word I forget to pronounce, but technologies. I didn't want it. That's a substitute word. They as technocrats.
Okay.
Dominating the technology wall of technology, state of the art, electronics. That's what I want to use. That money is now buying America.
Yeah, because it seems that they're condescending when they come into the community, even though they
I don't
run
blame
the stores.
Them. I don't blame them.
You know,
why should they love you or me?
Yeah, right.
Are we Japanese?
Right. I mean, even Arabs as well, though.
Are we Arabs?
No.
All right. I don't blame them. Did they tell us we got to come in the store?
No.
How come we don't have a store?
You see, there becomes the closing question. What happened to Harlem? Where are the black
I don't
businesses?
blame an Arab or any other ethnic group for looking out for his own.
Okay.
To the contrary, he walk up and down the street and we buy from him. Their brothers walking up and down the street, we're not buying from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we say nigger ain't shit. That's a common expression.
Okay.
We mean that professional or not. I stay out there down the store and see black men and women come from the hospital there with a hospital uniform on and his license and the tag showing they're members of the medical profession.
Mm-hmm.
Brothers arguing with them about things that is medical. A white guy will come in there with a white suit and sign painter, hospital orderly, and the black brother will go and ask that orderly if the answer the black doctor gave him was correct. And all this white guy do is hand a paint brush, but he white.
And like Malcolm X, are we sick?
Are we sick, boss? Same mentality. The mere fact that he's white, then his answer got to be better than the professional black.
Mm-hmm.
You got black people who will never go to a black doctor, who will never go to a black lawyer. You understand what I mean? Don't care how knowledgeable that they, simply because our mind we screwed up. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying because I wouldn't look. If you heard that I got a white doctor, I fell out and had no choice in selecting him or her. You understand? Or I couldn't get to the black doctor because I go to this when I get sick. I'm going to the hospital. That's where I've been. When I got sick, I got black doctor. I got black doctor for everything you know could go with me. I got a black doctor for that. I go a black lawyer. I go. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
All right. For my children, I look for a black teacher and a place where black children go to school. You see, I have no problem. I didn't carry with the busing thing. My children stood at Harlem. They tell me they're gonna bust my child. I told you, you gonna kill me or carry me to jail. But you ain't carry my daughter and no goddamn bus. You don't carry my son and no bus. I don't want my son in no stinking white neighborhood for them to further poison him. No, he gonna learn and learn well because I'm gonna live behind his behind. He gonna learn. I'm gonna be in the school there to talk to the teacher about him, and the teacher gonna teach him because I'm gonna see to it that they're gonna be. Otherwise, the principal got me to deal with.
Right.
So I'm my children alone. They went to college.
I've
and do
noticed
everything.
in the transition that what's happening in busing that I've seen around the East
You ever
Coast,
seen a bus bringing a white kid to the black neighborhood?
Yeah, but it's a total reversal. It's the
No,
point
I said,
I'm making. They bring the whites here and the blacks there. So,
They don't do that.
But I haven't seen integration. I've seen complete extremes.
You see, what you see is black kid going to white neighborhood to become white.
Right.
Training to become mentally white, but remain physically black.
Right.
So that what you got is a messed up black child.
Because I've come across a lot of people won't use black attorneys because black attorneys haven't been able to get beyond the myth of selling out.
Well, that's another myth. The black attorney going to sell you out.
Right.
Why are you going to sell you out? What for the place? What the hell you got to sell out?
Yeah.
You ain't got nothing. How you going to sell you out?
Right.
For $1.50?
We have the good old boy network and the whole thing.
And that again is a part of the training and a part of the domination and a part of the Jesus myth. You see, we see white people like Jesus. That's what we present. We can't even kill white people because we think they're killing Jesus.
That's true.
We are common association, man.
Okay, so in closing, give me just some kind of advice to continue with the struggle.
I think that African people have to think of themselves as being alone and must support themselves in every effort there is. That the European have no intent to do anything for the African must do it for themselves. Don't sit down and wait for the European society to help your kid in school, because the school wasn't built for the African kid. The school was built to further European interests and European culture.
Okay. Well, with that, we thank you. I thank you.